All right, we're live. Nice. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. We have the great Sol Luckman on with us today. Welcome, Sol. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me, Donnie.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the conversation tonight. So, guys, if you don't know, Sol should need no introduction, but he is an award-winning author. He is a painter and a psychonaut. He's written several books, including Snooze, A Story of Awakening and Coming of Age. I recommend you guys get it immediately. Sol pioneered a method of healing called regenetics, which is encapsulated in his book, Potentiate Your DNA. It's a revolutionary healing science that helps you essentially reboot your etheric body and more. He's also written the Kali Yuga, The Destroyer, an amazing book, and his latest book, The World Cult and You, Your Place in It and Your Way Out, which we'll be discussing tonight. Very excited for that. And so, The World Cult and You theorized the existence that a world cult is divided into endless subcults, ultimately controlled by a spiritual adversary designed to control humanity. Well, I agree 100%. Sol postulates that parasitic controllers are commandeering the human mind through all media to bring about our current looming dystopian realities. I love Sol for a bunch of reasons. I'm super happy to have him on today. One, he's been on a journey of discovery like we all have, and he promotes radical skepticism, especially in the truther community. He isn't static. He throws out things that don't work for him all the time, and we'll get into that in the stream. Super deep thinker, super nice guy, and he exposes the divine comedy boldly going on. And he is the best de-looshing activist I've ever met in my life, so we're going to get into that as well. I love how much he triggers truthers. Him and I are much on the same page, and him and I have come to a lot of similar conclusions in very different ways. So, without further ado, Sol Luckman.
Hey, thanks. That was very generous. Who is this guy? I sounded, so much bigger than myself.
You're just being humble, man.
Great. I appreciate that. I really, really do. Yeah. I didn't know about your work until you reached out to me, and then I checked out what you were doing, and I realized we were on a very compatible wavelength relative to all of the mind control and world cult going on, and then I realized you were very bright just with your communications and stuff. So I've been looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did anything stand out to you in terms of compatibilities, or I'd just be curious because I feel the same way about all of your work.
Yeah, well, I may not have as much to go on as you, but I could just tell from just your comments when you were commenting, for example, on the excerpt that I put out of The World Cult and You, the audio video book, just your observations were really in alignment with where I'm going with this. I mean, I'm sure you have many of your own thoughts, and we don't have to agree on everything, but it was clear that we've traveled different paths and arrived at an awareness that even our truth tellers are telling lies. Basically, they don't even necessarily know that. And it's a big problem because it takes people's energy away from things they could and should perhaps be doing with their lives, like growing up spiritually and building their power and moving things forward as opposed to going backwards and being essentially fed upon by some kind of I would call it predatory, but I would have to kind of put that in quotes. And there's a much greater story here in terms of how I understand what is happening. It's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. And I actually honor the predatorial aspect of this so-called reality because it is our teacher.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. No, that's great. Oh, somebody's saying sound in the chat here. Just want to make sure we're live. 1 second here, Sol. Still real amateur. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a techie, so anyone's better than me at this kind of thing.
Oh, we got sound good. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that, Sol. So that's something that's really paramount to my work is not going down the doomer truther trap. You know, I think we've all been there, right? We wake up to one scam or another. You know, everybody's awakening journey was different, but we get caught in these endless traps or loops. And I called it the doom loop, the truth or doom loop, in which, you know, we can't really escape. We're just hyper focusing on the negative. And, you know, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years go by, and all these communities, nothing's really changing for the better. You know, nobody's really improving their lives, and you're just worse off than when you began. And so, you know, when you speak about loosh and the LOOSHening, you know, I really resonate with that. Maybe we could start there. Can you, for the audience, just talk a little bit more about what looshing is? What do you think causes it? And maybe we'll kick off from there.
Yeah, sure. I know that not everyone is familiar with the term. It doesn't really matter. It really, for me, I actually define it in Kali the Destroyer. That novel title was Kali the Destroyer, and it's a book about the Archons. So you know, I was really looking into how we were being parasitized mentally. I was basing some of the structure of the novel on John Lamlash's Fallen Goddess scenario and his notion of archons as mental parasites and that kind of thing. And I'm not 100% on that wavelength, and I'm less so than I used to be in many ways. But I define loosh as a hyperdimensional energy that is released by the human soul when it's traumatized. So, and it can be fed on, and it can be used to power up other beings and other creations. What I didn't say in that book is that really I feel like loosh is just a form of consciousness that can be released from us. And if you want to substitute power or chi or prana or orgone or mojo or mind or whatever for consciousness, that's fine. To me, it's essentially all the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what is happening is our consciousness is being drained. We are becoming less self-aware, less empowered, and our vital. It's also exactly synonymous with Kundalini. Thus, as our minds are being wiped and our consciousness is being drained by all of these shenanigans, our personal power, our vital life force is being drained from us to the point that we can only function at a kind of baseline level, and we're always amazed when somebody who's a little bit older, like myself, does the things that I do, being a little bit older, like physically and athletically. They're like, "Oh my God, you're so old. How do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't believe the same shit you believe about aging." And I've been working on reassembling and regathering my personal power for a very long time, and I'm still working on it.
Yeah. I totally agree. As you know, for me, I had a very challenging upbringing, and I think that's partially what led me down the, quote, awakening path very early. But at the same time, as I'm getting older, I realize that the trauma that we hold individually in our lives very much is a block for us reaching our full potential. And so am I correct in saying that that's what you're stating? And also you're speaking both on an individual and collective level, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, it works individually and collectively. I mean, we could go into kind of how that works. I mean, in a nutshell, everyone is being loosed to one degree or another by the mind manipulation that's going on. We're talking about mental parasites that have not only infiltrated our media and our structures, our official discourse, but are in people's heads. Literally, they are dealing with mental etheric parasites of one kind or another that are controlling their minds and their thoughts, their allowed thoughts, and thus their allowed behaviors. It is very complex. So it happens individually, but then individuals come together in groups, and I call these groups who come together to be loosed together cults. And it can be a relationship, a cult of two. It can be a family. It could be a small business venture. It could be a team. It could be a fan base, and all the way up the line until we're talking about countries and continents and the whole shebang, until finally you reach the world cult, which is the encompassing entity of all of these cults, and it is lorded over by a spiritual adversary that I call the Great Parasite. Others have talked about an artificial intelligence. I don't think there's anything artificial about it. I think it's absolutely natural. It's part of our dream world. We've actually dreamed it into existence, and it's really up to us to dream it out of existence, or at the very least change our relationship to it in this existence. So that was one. I answered one question, but you had another one. Trauma. The other one was trauma, right? So I think that trauma is a double-edged thing, or a two-way street. Trauma is a blockage, but it is also an invitation to transcend and go beyond. So in my case, I was very ill in my 20s. I got in trouble with some things that, certain people stuck in my body, and it just didn't work out well for me, and I got really, really sick from it. And so this was years ago. We're talking like the 90s here. So all of the stuff that's happened in the last few years, that's old hat for me, man. I have been there and I've done that, and I've gotten myself out of it. But I also would tell people that all of these triggers and traumas that are being thrown at us are also invitations to Aikido them, to deflect them, to use that energy for ourselves. It's actually possible to do what I'm saying. It is the essence of martial arts. So I'm not just speaking philosophically about use that negative energy for your own growth. I mean, actually take the energy and turn away with it, and then stoke yourself with it.
I totally agree. Yeah. I believe we're here for a reason, and I believe the trials and tribulations that come before us, we're meant to go through them, right? And, we have several ways of awakening. One is consciously to choose it in advance, and the other is through struggle, right? And I believe that in my own journey, it's been a mix of two. It's been a mix of curiosity and pushing the boundaries, of consciousness and all of that, but also having pain and having trauma, and really digging into why that's the case, and transcending. And that's what I love. The message of your book is you very much have a message of hope. You very much promote that it's your duty, if you will, to transcend. Maybe you can speak to that in a bit more depth.
Yeah, it's your duty to yourself, to transcend. It's not really your duty to anyone else. I mean, although I think it will help people. If you can move to the next level, you will be like an energy supplier to people around you, and you can do it in such a way that you're not actually being loosed. There's a way to give away energy and power, in a sense, that is like a gift, but it doesn't detract from you. This is a very high level kind of shamanic, yogic type of thing I'm talking about, but it's definitely within our capabilities. Also, I would say, the unpacking of the full human potential is kind of what we're talking about here. In my novel Snooze, I wrote about the cities, the SIDDHIS, the powers that people actually possess, like the ability to levitate and grow small and do all kinds of fascinating, quote unquote paranormal things. But it's the cultivation of power, however you do it, that is the gateway to all such things. Mm-hmm. And it's also the gateway to exiting the world cult, to getting out of the matrix. Because I think the game board here, I use the word game board in the world cult and you. I think the game board here is like a classroom. And I know some people hate that. Sorry. I'm not going to apologize for seeing the obvious. It's so obviously a kind of test. If you can't see it, that's your problem. But the game board is basically designed to teach us that we're powerful, because we come in having mostly forgotten that. That's the memory wipe. John Keats talked about this is a veil of soul making where we forget who we were. Wordsworth talks about trailing clouds of glory do we come, and then we forget that we had these clouds of glory. So we are incredible creative beings. Like, it's almost like Thor, in the movie, just plummeting to the earth, but when he hits the ground, he's completely, if that's us, we've forgotten that we were a god, and so we have to learn how to remember that, and then we have to learn how to re-embody that. It's not an easy task, and it's especially not easy in the world cult, because it's designed to keep people from looking outside instead of inside. Yeah. So just look at anybody these days, practically. Not anybody, but so many people are like that. Like, truthers are a classic example of this. I mean, of course, mainstream is like this. The mainstream media and government and see your doctor and do all of these things. Of course, all of that. We would expect that kind of rhetoric coming from those people. But I used to think that truthers were smarter than they are. They're not real smart, because they haven't figured out that they're playing into a game that's rigged against them in the way they're playing it. The only way to win is not to play. And the only way not to play is to go from the outside to the inside, do the inner work, take the inner journey, the shadow work, learn to dream. Whatever's going on in the outside world simply doesn't matter. I'm not saying there aren't bad things happening. I get it. I'm not dumb. This isn't my first rodeo. But I'm saying you really don't have control over that. When people get into serious activism, whether it's saving the earth, which is just a ridiculous concept, or any other kind of very serious, externally focused activism, all they're really doing is engaging in massive amounts of hubris and pride and arrogance.
So I love it. You got balls, buddy. And you touched on several things which I do agree with, and a few that, for the first time, I do have a difference of opinion. So I want to get into that. But first, I just want to kind of set the stage here. Okay, so I want to understand how you view reality. Like, who are you? Where are you? And where are all of we?
These light questions, right?